Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is Hildreth. He's a consultant and coach who helps executives hone their leadership skills, develop their unique personal leadership styles, and become cultural centers of gravity in their organizations. Casey encourages his clients to take a deep dive into their psyche to remove blocking influences and allow their natural resonant and inspirational leadership styles to come forward. Currently, Casey has published 6 books: The Evolution of an Ordinary Leader, Living into Your Highest Potential, Supercharge Your Startup, Fund Your Dreams, Lessons from Startup Trenches, and The Power of You. And this last book is the topic of our conversation, one that's very insightful and close to my heart. This is my brief introduction to you, Casey. The full bio will be at the end of this podcast interview. But the question that I love asking, I always start that way. Who are you in your own words as of this moment?
Gosh, that's a great question, and it evolves all the time. But I think if I were to put it cleanly, it is, I feel like I'm just a messenger for divine truth. I'm a messenger for things that maybe people need to hear. I'm kind of a bridge in some ways. I work with a lot of executives and businesses who are very grounded in the body and very grounded in their lives. And so I act as kind of a translator in many ways of things that might seem overly spiritual to one of them or a layperson. I translate that message so that they can hear it and help them use it to lead and create powerful, love, culture-centered organizations.
Wow. What's not to love about that? I always say
it's
that.
A fantastic job.
It's beautiful. Yes. How did you find this path, this way of being in this reality, this expression of you?
Oh gosh, that's I was thinking about that before I got on, and it really was through kind of trauma and tragedy. Yeah. I was a business executive myself, running my own company, and we had gone through a lot. The markets had crashed in 2000, so we were under a lot of pressure from investors. I was under a lot of pressure, period. And then I was in New York in 2001, and 9/11 happened. And I was supposed to go to meetings downtown, and I knew people on the planes, I knew people in the buildings, and it was as if a giant vice kind of crushed in on me. And from that point forward, I started having panic attacks. I was extremely stressed. It was almost as if my whole idea of self got crushed in one of those compactors. And after a few years of just real trial for me, I had to ask a hard question of what do I really want to do with my life? What is resonant for me? What feels good? Because I think I had been living in this world of I had to be an executive. An executive looks a certain way and acts a certain way. And once I dropped all that, what occurred to me, and it took me a while, it wasn't, I think a lot of times people think these are flashes of, they happen overnight. It didn't happen overnight. It happened over a period of 10 years where I started realizing that what I wanted to do was help people. And what I wanted to do is be this translator and this messenger and hopefully create follow-on effects in the world so that people can live happier, better lives and be successful.
Yeah, right. At the same time, right. Bridging this misunderstanding of spirituality and practicality, because a lot of people think it's one way or another, right? I can only be spiritual, I can only be money driven or materialistic.
Yeah, especially like the woo-woo, like people will say, "Oh, I'm practical. I have to run this business," but they're not exclusive. You can actually do both, and you can create real resonance and harmony inside yourself and an organization.
So the question that comes to me after listening to you and your story is, what happened to, what do you think, what do you feel it happened to us as human beings being overly identified with the body mind and believing that this is all that we are? How did that
Mm.
happen? And is suffering the only way to to get out of that identification?
Yeah, I get that question about suffering. You know, I believe it is one of the ways that we learn. And I think in my
Yeah.
experience, 95% of the people who come to me are coming to me with some form of suffering. And they're, I think the physical body and the mind is kind of built to fear. It gets easily trapped in this idea of this fear cycle, this fear feeling cycle.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
once we understand that, we can kind of let that go. But we get trapped in it occasionally. And I think that's part of what being human is part of our path on this earth, is to learn how to manage our own physical incarnation here and really find our way back to the freedom of, a freedom of God, the freedom of divine power that naturally comes through us. And that's what I'm working with leaders. I actually am trying to emphasize this is about you becoming more powerful in the world. This is about you becoming more resonant. And to do that, we have to acknowledge we have these physical bodies that get triggered. We have these physical bodies that in minds that obsess about our fears. And that obsession acts as a constriction.
Yes.
If our bodies are conduits for divine power, then fear is it's like stepping on a garden hose. It just limits the flow. And so how do we relate to our fear? How do we feel it completely, but not get consumed by it? And that's kind of the language I use with people, because usually when they're coming to me, they are in fear. They are feeling struggle, stress, pain, resistance, all these things that are uncomfortable. And so we have to start there.
Right. Wow, that's a powerful conversation in itself. Topic fear and how to navigate that realm, right?
Yeah.
I do have a question for you about that. But before that, I'll just make a funny comment if it is funny. Do you have any politicians as a client?
Politicians, I don't. I have people who are aspiring politicians, and that's one of the things I love, is that I have knock-on effects when I'm doing my work. Is I actually believe that someday I will coach the president of the United States, and that is something that I really, what means a lot to me is making a difference on a larger scale and bringing some of these ideas to a larger audience. So I hope to do that someday.
Wow, that sounds wonderful as a vision. And now that there is, we might have a woman as a president, so who knows?
Who
That
knows?
becomes more of a possibility, right? Because women tend to be more open if she is in that stream of the feminine energy, the feminine divine, and open to, we never know. But regarding fear, what's your relationship with fear now? Do we become fearless at some point? Or and what would that look like?
Well, in my belief, it's impossible to become fearless without fear. Fear is a physical experience that we are going to have in this life. We are going to get startled. We're going to be driving down the street too fast, and we're going to see a policeman taking radar. We're going to have that startle moment. It's impossible to not feel the sensation of fear. The question is, what do we do with that when we feel it, and how do we process that? And I think it all boils down to our own comfort with discomfort.
Yes.
Our own, I like to call it delicious discomfort. Like, it's like this idea of, I'm really uncomfortable right now. I'm really feeling that fear, and to really go into it, to feel it, because the more we kind of accept it and open our hearts to it, the faster it moves. And so this idea of being fearless, that's impossible. We will feel fear. We will feel discomfort. We will feel pain. How we process that and let go of it and come back to our normal self. And this is key. When I'm talking to a leader, leading an organization, you're going to get afraid. You're going to look at your numbers. You're going to look at things and think, yikes. And so the question is then, what do you do with that? Because if you stay in that, it transmits. You're talking to your people and they're feeling your fear and they start to pick it up.
Right.
And so how quickly can you sit and acknowledge, I am afraid right now? Take a deep breath, let it go, and begin to come back to your natural resonance. And this is not, I'm not saying this like, oh, just do this. This is not easy sometimes,
Right.
but this is the practice.
Yeah. So it's a process, it's a practice. Do you use meditation?
Yes, I meditate personally daily,
Yeah.
but it is to understand and separate from the mind,
Mm,
to see what is the mind and what is not.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. That's a big one, part of it, that
Yeah,
the mind is not the only place to come from, right? To express ourselves. It's fascinating when we realize that. Wait a minute, there's more here.
yeah. I have one of my martial arts teacher who was talking about this flow, this idea of flow, and he was saying that the mind is like, he calls it the village idiot, because it's very narrow thinking. It doesn't encompass everything, and so we can't figure things out all the time from our mind. The mind is a tool. That's all it is. It's a useful tool.
Yes, yes. So I guess I have heard, and I know I'm living that, having this experience myself, that, the times that we are living in now, it's too busy. So everybody's too distracted with so many things. They have no really time to be outside of the mind or even contemplate the idea that there is something outside of a body mind. So do you ever get to coach people like that? That they can only understand the mind body complex.
Oh my gosh! I mean, this is why I see myself as somewhat of a translator, because yes, virtually every person who comes to me is to some extent consumed by the mind and trying to figure everything out. And the words, I got to figure it out. I got to make it happen.
Right,
Those are
right.
things that are always there. And so the degree to which someone is open to separating from that and seeing the mind for what it is, and I believe that once people, it doesn't need a particular language. I like to mirror people's languages. So I somewhat of a chameleon that way. I can hear the way people are speaking about things and kind of mirror them. And when they start to hear things in their language, and then they begin to say, "Oh, that's really true." That's
Mm,
the that's where the power is. As someone begins to open up, it doesn't have to be a particular book, a particular language. It's just something that they need to acknowledge inside themselves. And when they do, everything breaks open. And that's what's really
ah.
cool.
But I noticed that some of us are not open at all. I have been around people for many years that they are still at the same level, and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really matter if I tried to help them. Or, I have been so creative in trying to kind of water that seed, but it has not happened. So, do you ever wonder about timing? That some of us are not actually ready.
Oh, yeah. My very first phone call, which I typically talk to clients for an hour for free, is just really to assess and kind of understand where they're at. And I don't judge any of it. If someone's not
Right,
ready, they're not
right,
ready.
right.
Um, but I ask very hard questions. Are you willing to question your sacred cows? Are you willing to look at things beyond what you believe and to see things in a deeper way? And I ask them actually at the end of the call, I said, if they're excited, they want to work with me. I said, you know what? Don't actually. You go away, and I really want you to sit with this and talk to your spouse
Mm.
and meditate on this, because it's not easy, questioning the mind. It's not easy questioning
Yes.
this physical existence, and asking yourself, is it really true that I need to feel like this? And so some people go away and they don't come back, and that's fine. They're not ready. Again, everyone's like, we're all flowers opening. We're all part of a
Mm.
larger unfolding, and each person is in the place they need to be in that moment. And yes, sometimes it's pain. Sometimes they have reached a limit and they're saying, I just can't. That's what happened to me. I just can't live this way anymore. There's got to be a better way. And that starts a long process that can take the rest of our lives.
Mm. Yes, that is so true. And when you speak of questioning the mind, my experience has been of the mind rebelling against it. The whole,
Mm.
idea. And I remember having panic attacks too. And now I have learned to just keep questioning and just stay quiet and let it throw its tantrum. I just let it do
Exactly.
what it
Throw a
does.
tantrum. Yeah.
But it's just not easy, right? It's not for everyone. You're right. You have to be, and I don't know if the word is strength. I don't know. It feels to me like it's a destiny type of thing. That some of us somehow have been already in training somehow, and we are becoming more open and open to that, to the infinite, really.
I agree. I think there's more and more people who are open to hearing these messages. And yes, there's resistance. And this is part of
Yeah.
I try to explain this right up front, is there will be resistance. The mind doesn't go easily. It, the term I would use is looping. People will loop back. They'll take a step forward and then kind of loop back a second, just because the old way of being worked. And in many cases in
Yes.
my world with executives, the executives have become successful and they're doing things that worked. And so to let go of those things that worked, it's like jumping off into the abyss to look at it a different way. But they're suffering enough that they're willing to do that in many cases.
Yeah. Somebody said something that really resonated with me. It feels like goddesses, they're trying to become more human in a way. In them, that might be the evolution of this, which we call life. I don't know how real this is too, and I question everything. And that's why I love Vedanta, because one of the first things they say is that you are God, you're already what you're looking for. That's very straightforward. And then that this is a dream reality. So you always will be, in a way, having experiences. And that's not all they are, experiences.
They're just experiences.
Yeah. So in a way, we take it too seriously, don't we? We take the mind content too seriously. We take everything too seriously. Maybe that's why we suffer.
Well, and you used a word, and people are trying. They're trying to reach God. They're trying, like everything.
Yes.
And this is whenever, I call it efforting in business. When you're over efforting, it's like, I'm trying to make it work. Well, stop trying. You are that divine energy. You are. There's no,
Yep.
you can't try it into existence. It's more of a letting go, which again is that counterintuitive. The mind does not want to let go. It wants to control. Like the
Yes.
mind wants the primary addiction beneath all other addictions is control. And this, when we experience fear or discomfort, the mind says, I need to control this. And that is a thing to let go of, because the moment we let go of that desire to control and we kind of say, it's going to be okay. I am, and we let go, everything kind of resolves. And it's a whole lot easier than all that trying.
Oh my God. Yeah. What's not to love about that message too?
Yeah.
I think the mind and the body, both, they need to hear that all the time as a practice too. Just relax, let go, surrender. That's one of my practices too for the body mind, but I'm very much aware that I'm not the body mind, which sounds strange for some people to hear. I say that here all the time. and some people still wanted to be on my podcast. So that's wonderful. That means there's a resonance there. We're not the body. We're not the mind. We are way, 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 not even more. We are just that. We're everything, which is very interesting. The mind cannot hold that. It's just too much, right?
Exactly.
That you're not just here, you're everywhere. Gosh, I love that. I mean, I love that, but that's because I guess I'm a true spiritual seeker. I'm willing to let go of everything that the mind believes in, that this is real, that this is forever, that, in all those things, that I will survive the body somehow, reincarnate and all those things. I'm willing to let go of it all.
Yes. Yes. And that has a natural power. That's what I mean about the power of you. When we emerge like that, the power kind of emerges from us when we're acting out of love, when we're acting out of excitement. Whatever happened to excitement and playfulness? Like the idea of doing things because they're exciting and they're fun and you love the meaning of it all. When you act from that place, you become inspirational, you become resonant. I mean, you're doing it right now with the podcast. You're something that's in your heart, something that's true, and you're having a knock-on effect around the world. This is leadership. This is what leadership is. And what I like to talk to my clients about is like all that trying and all that tension is just limiting your natural power.
So talk to me about the main intention. Did you set an intention? I know you talk about being intentional too, which is some of the thing. It's a concept that I have dropped for some reason. Stories and intentions. I just love the idea to be intuitive. Whatever it's here. It's here for a reason. Whatever reason, I don't need to know either. And I just kind of do what it's supposed to be done. So, but talk to me about the intention, because I feel like you believe in the concept of intention, or you embrace that. So, did you set an intention when you write the book, The Power of You?
Yes, I try, and I do believe we have the way and this is also incorporating the mind and using the mind more as a tool.
Right.
Is that I believe that the mind always does have an intention, even though it's unstated. So whatever we end up doing, there was some intention behind it. And so prior to doing anything, asking what is my intention, like what if I'm going to have a tough conversation with somebody, is my intention to be right, or is my intention to hear the other person? What is my intention? Because it'll show up no matter what we do. So it's more about making intentions conscious. And really, and I want to, demystify this idea of intention. It stems from the Latin intendere, which is to cast the mind toward. It's like a fishing line.
Yeah.
And so we can use our minds and we can say, I'm going into a meeting. What is my intention? And we can kind of set the mind on a path. And so if we want to create something, if we want to do something in the world and act on it, the intention acts as the guiding line of energy. And we can use that. I do believe intuition is much more powerful than our minds, and our bodies and our souls understand much more than our mind can.
Oh, yeah.
But we can use the mind to be intentional. So it's a tool that I use, and I recommend using if you want to create something specifically and do it intentionally.
Yes. Yeah. So it's similar to being, some people use creating consciously. I have heard that too. Is that somewhat similar, Casey, or not?
Somewhat similar. But intentional has direction. It has a direction to something.
Yeah.
So one of the exercises I work with clients is to create a vision or an ideal scene, and that is the mountaintop, or that is the scene that I'm heading toward. And then all I need to say is I intend to go toward that. I intend that.
Right.
And every day I can act upon my intention. So every day I can take a small action in support of my intention. And that's how people create things. And so if you want to create something in the world, use your podcast. You had a vision and you saw what you wanted to create. And then some part of you says, I will create that. And that's intentional. And so we just acknowledge the conscious intention. Yes, but a conscious intention towards something is what's important if you want to build something specific.
Yeah. That resonates from that perspective, right? I think if we're using language, it's really hard sometimes. The language that I use usually is destiny. So calling destiny, like this podcast is the example you made. It just happened not even overnight. It was over a few hours. Just that came to me intuitively, and I just did it. And afterwards, I could not even believe, how did you do that? The introduction, and then I wrote everything down, and I just started putting everything together. It felt very much like something that was predestined. That's what it felt like at the core, that the body, mind, they were prepared, they were ready to do this. And I don't know for what reason, but then later on, of course, it felt so good that I couldn't help, think, you knew what you're doing, whatever it was. So yeah, because it felt right. It felt like this was, I feel like destiny. For some reason, that still resonates. It relates to karma too, because we are now what we think we are, in a sense, even of, the way we are constructed biologically. We think that we are, I don't know, born from this mother, father. But if you really dig deep enough, with the ancestry, with the trees, and see, you would just find incredible things. I'm behaving the way my great-great-great-great-grandmother used to in some ways. So I don't think even at that level, we don't really know who we are.
Yes. And I agree with you. And I would call that the inductive kind of, the way I'm looking at it is deductive thinking, is where you do it specifically and you say, here's my vision, here's where I want to go. And then there's the inductive process, which was what you're describing, is to feel into it. And I don't believe there's one way that works. Some people work better with one, some people work better with another. And that's kind of what when I'm listening to people, of how their brains, how they work. And it sounds like you are very guided.
So I read in your book that the power of you, and I wanted to pronounce, well, wait a minute. Yeah, the power of you, understanding and unleashing the incredible power within. So that you had some struggles with the idea of God in the very beginning or before all this. So how do you feel now about saying the word God? Because I had trouble with that too, that
Mm.
concept of God.
I say it all the time, because it's the definition of God has changed so much for me. I think when I was growing up, the organized religion was, there's a God out here,
Yeah,
and that God is on a throne, looking down, judging, and telling me what's good and what's bad, and setting up all these binaries for me to adhere to. This, that you're sinning or you're not sinning,
right.
or you're being good, and all of that struck me as overly simplistic, and I think I just pushed it away. But once I began to understand and deepen into my own sense of self, uh, this idea of God is so much bigger than we can even conceive, that the mind
Mm,
can even conceive. And yeah, the mind wants
mm,
to say it's sitting on a throne, but it is life itself. It is God is existence. It is the universe. It is conscious. It is loving. It is us, in my belief now. And so that I could get my heart around. That I could
yeah,
say, all
yeah.
right, I can see this. And so that's how I ended up. And I have no problem now. And in fact, I do work with quite a few people who are very traditionally religious. And what I love about that is they're open to it too. And they tend to have a faith built in because of
Yeah.
they have more faith. They don't question as much because they do believe in something. But they're very open minded about hearing about this nature of God.
Mm, yes, yeah. So another thing I wanted to talk to you about, gosh, so many things you have to look. Yeah. How do you define success these days, Casey?
Oh gosh, a very it has more to do. I'll give you an example. So I had a client call this morning, and the things we were talking about, he had conveyed to one of the people who works for him, who had then said that very idea changed the way this woman was relating to her family and her child and her
Yeah.
mother. And I define success and it just thrills me. This idea of someone once referenced it as pushing dominoes, is that you help someone, someone opens up, someone feels better about their life, and then they go on and affect five other
Mm,
people.
mm,
And that to me is
yeah.
success. That it's you can have financial success, can have you know interest in what I do, but the idea of connecting and helping others just is everything to me. Like that's what success means.
Yeah, I love that. Thich Nhat Hanh, you don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a very respected monk, a beautiful monk in so many ways. He was very devotional. Yeah, he wrote beautiful poems about that. I am the rapist and I am the one who is being raped. I mean, he just beautifully kind
Mm,
of danced around the contrast, of the dance of God being everything and allowing everything to be. That's what real love would be,
mhm.
unconditional love. So that's a tough one. Easier said than done because I catch myself a lot of times being judgmental and
Sure.
even like uneasy around violence. Oh my God, something in me still. I had a lot of traumas too, so I guess it's connecting with that pain of somebody abusing children or animals. I just get so uneasy around those things still, as the body mind. But that's all. I let go pretty quickly too because I know it's just something that the body it's attached to. So
Mhm.
I let go.
Mhm.
But how do you feel about this idea of freedom, and what is freedom to you as of today?
Oh, this is a great question. Freedom is letting go. Freedom is letting go of the trying and letting go of
Mm,
the shoulds. The word should, trying. It is truly coming into ourselves. And I believe that confidence, this idea, because I get people who come to me and say, I want to build confidence. I want to build confidence. Confidence is simply when you're free with yourself and
mm,
when you're okay with who you
mm.
are. And once you're okay with who you are, you appear confident. Like there's no
I
it is
agree.
our not okayness with who we are and our not okayness with feeling that makes us appear unconfident and that makes us insecure. And so we get insecure and then we look insecure and this is very important for leadership and inspiration too. If you want to inspire others, be
Mm,
inspired. That's all it requires. Let go and be inspired. Like, find something exciting. If you look at the best public speakers in the world, they're the ones who are truly excited about what they're saying. They're excited about this, and to let yourself go to that place, to feel free, to be. Children do it very easily. We actually just shut it down at about age 5 to 7. Children do this, can do this off the cuff. They're always excited, but we shut that down, and so finding our way back to that.
Yeah. Which means undoing and blocking some of the fear, right? Of being true to ourselves.
Yeah. It's all fear. It's all rooted in the fear of the way I like to say it's not fear and, there's fear and doubt, but it's not okay. Like when we feel something's not okay, like when we're not okay with ourselves or not okay with what way the world is or not okay, that's just fear because we want to control what's happening. And so even the way we feel, if I feel fear, can that be okay? Can I be okay with feeling fear and feeling pain? Because on the other side of that is my ability to feel joy and to feel love too. So I have to get okay with it all. And that's been a challenge for me. I mean, I grew up trying to control everything and now, control through substances, control the way I felt through everything.
Yeah.
And now it's just letting go and saying, all right, I'm really uncomfortable right now. That's okay.
Yeah. So I want to mention, I have so many things to mention about The Power of You, your book, but there's the other book that you sent to me a copy too. Thank you for sending me that as well. And I didn't read the book. I opened up and the first thing I saw is The Evolution of an Ordinary Leader. So is this poem.
By the way, that's my wife. My wife Neha wrote that. Yes.
Oh gosh, she's amazing.
She is amazing.
Gosh. I saw myself, I saw the other, I saw the truth, I dropped the illusion, I saw the truth, and I dropped the illusion. And the illusion dropped. I'm sorry, I just went back. Just beautiful.
Yeah.
I was just so, I know you wrote the book to most of the book, but that said it all. To me, that was it. Okay, yeah. Period. I know it's not the end of the book.
Yeah. And that's what's great is that my wife and I I'm more linear and logical, and she's more feeling and flowing and emotional and more intuitive. And, that to me is just so additive to whatever I might say. That probably for you said everything. You don't need to read the book. That's really
in the way.
What it is.
Yeah, how beautiful. So before I say anything else, I want to thank you for being open to life itself to the extent that you have been. I know it's not easy because I'm doing the same here and I know how hard it is.
You're doing a great job of it.
Courage. Oh, gosh, so you have been trying. It's trying in the sense of body, mind. I can't help it. They are really like children in a way. They need to be guided. So what else? There's so many things to talk about in your book, and I wrote so many things here, but I have, because we don't have a lot of time, what is about the book, a chapter that really resonated with you and personally, the body-mind complex?
I think it really started out as the beginning, the first chapter. I might want to say it's a profound one as the You Are Love, but it really was the first chapter because how many times we hear people say, I am, and then use some minimized language like, I am not so good at that, or I am this, or I am that. And what occurred to me, and one of the reasons I wrote the book is because I had read so much and I had meditated so much on these ideas that I just had to put it down. And the first thing is like to the profundity of not buying into this idea that I'm small. Like not buying into this idea that we have to reconnect with this idea that I am, if you want to put anything behind it, put divine. I am love. I'm whatever it is, but it's so much more than whatever we could say. And I think I see people coming to me that are constricted and they're saying, I'm not good at that, or I can't do this. And it's just acknowledge your own hugeness. I don't know how else to put it. Your own expansiveness. And that's was really important to me, is stop thinking of yourself as small, including talking to myself.
Right.
I think I was talking to myself when I wrote this, to this idea of being constricted and fearful. Let go, let yourself emerge.
Yeah. So, God, I love the quotes. You have so many. You quoted Buddha, Schopenhauer, D.H. Lawrence. I don't know who he is, but I have it here. I love what he said. The living self has one purpose only, to come into its own fullness of being. So I love that. And then about truth, Schopenhauer said, all truth passes through three stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as being self-evident.
That could describe, by the way, my work, because people at first, yeah, but they doubt it, they doubt, and then they start to experience things, and then and it's just a process of letting go of resistance and stepping into something, and then it becomes reality, and that's the power of it. It can be absolutely life altering to open to these ideas.
Right. And I know that you have these quotes here for a reason, because they resonate with you, your own, the truth that you have found. So that's very close to your experience. And then you say, love just might be the font of all creation. So that paused me too for a while. And then you said, I know personally how difficult it is to see, let alone accept, the power of you, unconditional love and beauty in the world. I have struggled with it my whole life, and sometimes I still do. Yet, even through life's difficulties, I have always found it easy to recognize how much power and potential exists in the people around me. So that shows interconnectedness, again, seeing the sacredness, the divine everywhere, and honoring that.
Which I think children do so easily. That's why, they want to hug everybody. They want to, it's just pure love.
Yes. So, that's something that I used to do when I became more aware that I was in the female body at that, and I was not supposed to be doing that as an adult. Growing up child, hug everybody and be close to everybody. So what's the balance have you found between the childlike, kind of imaginative, open, free, and the one that needs to create boundaries, the one that, for certain, within certain circumstances and people. So how do you suggest, like in my case, I'm asking that question because I have a problem with that a lot of times, to create boundaries and hold myself back for not being all that I can be around certain people.
Yeah. And I think that's a natural experience of, adulthood and growing up, is seeing that we do need to create boundaries for our own safety, for our own well-being, and that life, I think all of life is kind of a process of refining our boundaries and learning about ourselves and learning, I think I probably made my boundaries too open sometimes, and then you can over tighten and start to create distance. And those are just both protections, like in some way. And so this idea that we're protecting ourselves, if we can step away from that, there's nothing to be protected, that I'm okay, then I can discern. And that discernment is where the mind can be useful as well. Like there's an exercise I have some clients do of creating a yes/no list, which is yes on one side, no on the other, and just go through anything that you're thinking about and what's a yes and what's a no, and begin to orient your boundaries. Because in the moment, we can lose that sense of boundary. And is there an appropriate boundary to be held? What is a no for me? What can I say no to? Rather than just reflexively allowing something, for instance. Yeah. But this is work and it takes time. And that's why when I talk to clients about this idea of like really sit and think about yourself, like take time with this, because your reflexes may say one thing, but your desires may say something different.
Yes. Have you heard about this woman called Amma? She's in India. They called her like the hugging saint.
Yes.
Hugging saint.
Yes.
Yeah. She hugs everybody, no judgments, and she's just there. So I often think about her, and I think about Gandhi too. I think about this Mother Teresa. Remember, she used to hug even the sick people. She was not really afraid of losing the body herself. It's almost like as if when we are really embraced, we realize what we are, we just lose all fears that we will do what it needs to be done, what's the calling in the moment, with even that fear of of survival disappears. I think that's feels to me that that's the real. If there's something real, that's the closest we can get to that power, where we are not afraid, not even of losing the body, because we know we are not the body.
Yes, ultimately overcoming our fear of death, and this idea that even in death we are okay. There's a teacher told me once, a perfect vulnerability is perfect safety. And
Yeah.
so when you become perfectly vulnerable and we're willing to be completely open and stand naked in front of the world, then we realize that we can't be hurt, like really wounded. Like there's no there. I mean, we might feel something,
Yeah.
but we're okay. We're okay in death. We're okay with our feelings. We're free. We're okay. And that's a huge realization. We can't have it all the time, I think, because we're going to be triggered, but
Yeah.
it's a huge realization. And I believe that is where we step into our power right there. As soon as we realize that, we become somewhat fearless and we can go do things and make a difference. And we don't worry about what's going to happen because we know everything is going to be okay. And that's faith.
Right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And would you call that the true power? Is that
Yes,
when it comes to the power of us, that's
yeah. And that's the true power, the divine
yeah.
power that we are,
Yeah.
that is God, that imbues all things. It can't be destroyed. It can't be, it is what it is. And so we are part of that.
Yeah.
And I think that realization, it's challenging sometimes to stay in that. But that realization is what gives us the ability to do things that make a difference.
Yes. Right. Gosh, Casey, I will talk to you forever
Oh, yeah,
and never and never and never. So we're almost at the end, and I have all these notes that I made here. I love You Are Perfect too. I made a lot of notes here about the things that you have said, the quotes, and you are amazing. You said, go to a mirror, look at yourself. What do you see? That's a beautiful question.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what an amazing meditation, reflection, meditation, contemplation, whatever we call it. That is just amazing. What do you see? What do you see, Casey? Can you describe that?
Through my eyes, I see someone who is learning, someone who is learning and growing, and someone who feels connected to source sometimes, and someone who feels not connected to source sometimes. And I feel there's someone who's a human experience, and all of that is good and okay, and leads to my learning and growth. And I see an individual in everybody. I see it myself and in everybody else. We're all individuals opening up like a flower. We're opening, and there's no imperfection in any of that process. And
Yes.
we're just in process.
Yeah, how beautiful. Yes.
And it's humbling.
Yeah, it is humbling, right? Yeah. As it's both, it's interesting if the mind can hold, that has been said, right? The paradoxes being the infinite and the finite at the same time, which we are really the infinite. I interviewed somebody called Robert Wolf. He's very respected in the non-duality arena. And I used to be a fan of his work, and because I've been into non-duality for a long time. And I remember asking him that question in the end: is there any mystery, anything that we still need to know? Or he said, no, there's no mystery. You are that already. Everything that you are, that you believe, that you want, that you desire, it's all here. It's all here already. And then the very end, he said something about fear. If we can lose fear, he didn't say that though. Same thing that you've been saying. Then life is worth living. This experience is very much worth it and beautiful. If we can lose all fears.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it goes back to the fear. So fear, it stands as a barrier, right? As a wall between our divinity, true expression.
Yeah.
So that's the work.
I like that. I mean, the fear in its most simplest form for me is tension.
Yeah.
It's just simply this tension that binds us and that holds us from being free. And if we can let go and just let go of that. And I went for a while and read about near-death experiences and people who crossed over and had the experience of the divine directly and then came back. And almost universally, they come back and they have no fear. Like, because they realize that this body is just an aggregation of atoms that is held together by spiritual energy. There's nothing to fear. and that they become incredibly free. Anita Moorjani, in her book Dying to Be Me,
Right.
like that whole idea of freedom, like in the freedom she felt after having that experience. And I think we can all have that if we want to.
Yes. So, gosh, and I love that you also mentioned the Bhagavad Gita. That's one of the Bibles for Vedanta. The first one is the Upanishads. It's one of the books that I study. And then also Bhagavad Gita, that's another one. So you mentioned that there. If you want to see the heroic, look at those who can love in return for hatred. If you want to see the brave, look at those who can forgive. That's very simply put, but yes, right. If you can finally understand that you're not what you think you are, then the other is you too. Everything's you. Then it would change everything, the way we express, right? You see this, the actions of body mind would change. We just kind of give in to the stream of life itself, which is God, and let everything be. But yes, let me leave it at that. So, is there anything that you left unsaid for this conversation? Anything that wants to be here?
For everybody listening, I think the only thing I would say is what I tell anyone I've spoken to, and for the very first time, is that to let go, and it's everything is okay, and if you're suffering, it's okay too, and that's where your power lies.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you again for being you.
Thank you very much.
So before we say goodbye, I want to mention your services. So the areas that you help other people are leadership, entrepreneurship, and well-being. So you offer different coaches and consulting packages, and you label them differently. I have them here: informal, formal, guided. I love the guided one, and then immersive. And the website is kchildreth.com, and the website will be easily clickable, so you don't have to try to get his last name now, but I'll have there on the podcast notes, will be clickable. Okay. Did I miss anything, Casey, when it comes to your services?
No, not at all. That's generally what I do.
Thank you so much again for your presence, and we'll talk again. We'll be in touch again.
Thank you so much.
Bye for now.